I never imagined that a single dusty box could unravel my entire life. It was an ordinary Saturday morning, the kind where you plan to fix a few things around the house, maybe drink too much coffee, maybe do nothing at all. My wife, Emily, said she was going to visit her sister, leaving me with the perfect excuse to finally clean out the attic, a place I hadn't touched in years. The attic smelled like forgotten winters and lost time. Boxes piled on top of boxes, old Christmas decorations, photo albums, clothes we swore we'd donate. But in the far corner, beneath a broken lamp and a suitcase I didn't recognize, there was a box that had no dust on it. That detail, the clean surface, caught my eye immediately. It was labeled in her handwriting, "Do not open." At first, I laughed. It looked like something out of a bad TV drama. But the more I stared at those words, the more they started to feel like a challenge, almost a taunt. Why would she keep a box like this, hidden away from me, in our home? We'd been married for almost 8 years. We had no secrets, or so I thought. The box wasn't locked. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied with a faded red ribbon. They were old, the paper yellowed, edges frayed. Each one started the same way, "My dearest Emily." At first, I thought they were from an ex-boyfriend, some relic of her past. But the dates didn't make sense. The earliest letter was from a year before we even met, but the latest? It was from just 6 months ago. My heart sank. I sat down on the cold attic floor, the sunlight cutting through the tiny window, dust floating in the beam like tiny ghosts. I opened one of the more recent letters. "I miss the nights we shared. I dream of the day when you'll finally tell him the truth." Tell me the truth? About what? My hands were sweating, the paper nearly tearing in my grip. There was a name at the bottom, Daniel. I didn't know any Daniel. I didn't even know she knew a Daniel. I read 3 more letters, my breathing getting heavier with each word. They weren't just friendly letters. They were intimate, detailed, full of longing. They spoke about places I didn't know she had been, promises she made, plans she never told me about. Then, at the bottom of the box, I found a small photograph. Emily, standing beside a man I had never seen before. And between them, a little boy, no older than 5. The caption on the back made my blood run cold. "Our real family. One day we'll be together again."
I couldn't breathe. The air in the attic felt like it had turned into thick smoke, choking me with every passing second. My heart pounded so violently I thought I might pass out. The photo shook in my hands, the smiling faces staring back at me like a cruel joke. Emily, the woman I built my life around, standing so close to this man, Daniel, with a child between them, a child who had her eyes. I stumbled down the attic stairs, clutching the box, the letters, the photograph. My mind raced with 1,000 questions. Was she cheating on me this whole time? Was that boy ours? No, impossible. We didn't have kids. She always said she wasn't ready. I poured myself a drink, even though it was still morning. The glass trembled against my lips as I swallowed the bitter liquid, trying to calm the storm in my chest. Who was Daniel? Why didn't I know him? And what did they mean by our real family? I flipped through more letters, my fingers numb. They described secret meetings and places she told me were business trips. They mentioned dates, birthdays, even a small scar on the boy's forehead from when he fell off a swing. A detail so personal, so intimate, it made my stomach twist. Each word was another knife. I remembered all the times she came home late, her excuses about work, her vague texts, the way she guarded her phone like it held state secrets. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought I was the one with trust issues. But maybe I was just blind. I stared at the photograph again, tracing the boy's face with my thumb. Could he really be hers? And if he was, why hide him? Why build a life with me while secretly keeping another one alive in the shadows? I felt sick. I tried calling her. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. By noon, I was pacing the living room, the letters spread out on the table like evidence in some twisted investigation. I wasn't sure if I was angry, heartbroken, or just numb. Maybe all three. And then I noticed something. One of the letters mentioned a safe deposit box. It said, "Keep the documents there until the time is right. Don't let him find out." Documents? What documents? I checked our filing cabinet, our drawers, anywhere she might have hidden keys or codes. Nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from her. "Running late, don't wait for me for dinner." No explanation, no mention of her sister's house. Just that. I typed a dozen replies, demanding answers, begging for the truth, but I didn't send any of them. Not yet. I needed more. Because whatever this was, it wasn't just an affair. It felt bigger, darker, like I had stumbled into a life I was never meant to see. That night, I barely slept. My mind was a maze of half-formed theories and dark suspicions. Every creak in the house sounded like a lie, echoing back at me. I kept replaying the photograph in my head, the boy's face, Emily's arm around Daniel. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, suddenly felt like a stranger. By sunrise, I had made a decision. I couldn't sit in that house another day wondering. I needed proof. I needed to know what she was hiding, even if the truth shattered everything. I started by checking her email, the one we both used for bills and joint accounts. Nothing unusual. Then I tried the one she kept for work, which she never let me access. No luck. It was password protected. I considered hacking it, even Googled how, but stopped myself. I wasn't ready to cross that line. Not yet. Instead, I drove to her office, sat in the car across the street like some amateur detective, coffee growing cold in my hands. Hours passed. People came and went. No Emily. Where was she? Around noon, I saw her car pull up. My heart leapt. Until Daniel stepped out of the passenger seat, the same man from the photo. He kissed her cheek, not like a lover, but not like a stranger either. Familiar, comfortable, and they went inside together. My fingers clenched the steering wheel so hard it hurt. I wanted to storm in, demand answers, shout until the whole building heard me. But something in me said, wait, watch. They stayed in there for 2 hours. When they finally came out, they were carrying a black folder, thick, heavy. She tucked it under her arm like it was nothing. I followed them. Yes, I know how that sounds. Desperate, pathetic, paranoid. But you don't find letters like that, photos like that, and just go home to watch TV. You follow the trail. They drove across town to a small law firm, one I'd never heard of. They went inside. This time, I didn't wait in the car. I walked up to the glass door, peered inside. Receptionist, empty chairs, and a name on the wall. Graham and Cole, family law specialists. Family law. My pulse spiked. Divorce? Adoption? Custody? I felt like the ground was opening beneath me. I hurried back to the car as they came out. I didn't want to be seen. Not yet. The drive home was a blur. I gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. That evening, she came home as if nothing had happened, kissed my cheek, asked about dinner, talked about her day, a day I had just watched with my own eyes. Lies. Every word. I stared at her, wondering how much of my life had been built on this facade. 10 years together. 10 years of trust, or what I thought was trust. I asked casually about her sister. She said she was fine, smiled, lied. I felt like screaming, but I kept my voice steady, because now I knew the confrontation was coming. But when it did, I wanted every piece of the truth in my hands, and I was getting closer.
The next day, I couldn't pretend anymore. Every word Emily spoke felt like poison, every smile a mask. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was being hollowed out by questions I didn't dare ask aloud. So I did what any man on the edge would do. I dug deeper. While she was at work, I went through the black folder I had seen her carrying. It wasn't in her car, but her home office. She had left it on the desk, maybe thinking I'd never look. My hands trembled as I undid the clasp. Inside were legal documents, names, dates, signatures. And then I saw it. Paternity dispute. Confidential. I froze. My name wasn't anywhere on the first page, but Daniel's was. I flipped through, heart pounding in my ears. It was a custody agreement draft. 10 years old. The name of the child matched the boy in the photograph, Caleb. Caleb. Our son's real name is Tyler. At least, that's what I thought. The birth date matched. I dropped the papers. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Was my son not my son? I read further, desperate for clarity, praying for a misprint, a coincidence, anything but the truth I saw bleeding through those typed lines. Emily had been in a relationship with Daniel before me. That much I knew. Vaguely. She'd said it ended badly. What she hadn't said was that she was pregnant when we met, that she gave birth to a boy under his name, and then, when things fell apart, she cut him out, changed the paperwork, and started over with me. My whole life with Tyler, his first steps, his first words, the way he calls me Dad, was that all built on a lie? I staggered back, clutching the edge of the desk, my mind flooded with memories, birthday candles, scraped knees, bedtime stories, all suddenly overlaid with doubt. Who was I to him? A father? A placeholder? A cover-up? And what was Daniel now? A ghost from the past? A legal father trying to reclaim what he lost? I heard the front door. Emily was home early. Panic shot through me. I shoved the folder back, closed the office door, and tried to compose my face. But I must have looked like a man who'd seen a ghost. She glanced at me, eyebrows furrowing. "You okay?" she asked, so casually, so sweetly. I nodded. Lied. Just tired. But that night, lying beside her, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of a decade pressing on my chest. Tomorrow, I decided, I would confront her. No more hints, no more waiting. But a part of me whispered, what if she's not the only one lying? What if Daniel's story is different? I needed to hear it all, from both of them.
Morning light crept into the room, but it brought no peace. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers drumming against the wood, waiting for Emily to wake up. My mind was a hurricane of rage, sorrow, and something worse, uncertainty. When she came downstairs, hair still messy from sleep, I couldn't wait any longer. "Emily," I said, voice low but shaking, "we need to talk." She paused, coffee mug in hand. "About what?" I slid the folder across the table. The papers were all there, highlighted with the truth I'd found. Her eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've been lying to me for 10 years. Is Tyler even my son?" The words cut the air like a blade. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Then her shoulders slumped, as though the weight she had been carrying finally cracked her spine. I was going to tell you. I just never knew how. Never knew how? We built a life, Emily, a family. And you— I stopped myself, because the room was starting to spin again. Tears welled in her eyes. I loved you. I still do. But when we met, I was terrified. Daniel and I, we were done. He didn't want to be a father. He left. I was alone and pregnant and scared. And then you came along. You made me feel safe. I thought if I told you, you'd leave. I swallowed hard. And what about him? What about this custody agreement? Was he really gone, or did you push him out? She shook her head violently. He disappeared for years, and now he's back. I didn't want him to have a chance to rip this family apart. The irony burned my throat. You ripped it apart, Emily, by hiding the truth. Silence fell between us, the kind that feels like a storm about to break. I didn't know what hurt more, that Tyler might not share my blood, or that Emily had decided for both of us what kind of life we would live. That evening, I drove to the address Daniel had given me in his letter. A modest house, quiet street. He answered the door, looking older, more worn than the photo. But his eyes, those same piercing eyes from the picture, held a strange mix of guilt and hope. We talked for hours. His story wasn't perfect. He admitted he had run when Emily was pregnant, said he wasn't ready, said he regretted it every single day. And now he wanted to make things right. Not steal Tyler, he claimed, just to know him, to be acknowledged. I left his house with my mind heavier than before. That night, I sat in Tyler's room, watching him sleep, 10 years old, clutching his stuffed bear, breathing softly. Did it matter whose blood ran in his veins? Hadn't I been his father in every way that counted? In the end, I decided the truth had to come out, but not as a weapon, as a bridge. Emily and I told Tyler together weeks later. It was hard. There were tears. But there was also relief, because lies fester, and truth, however painful, can heal. Daniel meets him now from time to time. I'm still Dad. He's something else. Maybe one day we'll have a name for it. As for Emily and me, we're rebuilding. Slowly, carefully. But this time on real ground, not a fragile lie. And maybe that's the hardest, bravest thing of all, to start over when you thought your whole life was already written.